Hi everyone, it's meteorologist Terry Swails. It's Monday afternoon. You're on tswails.com, and this is a special weather briefing on the potential for some strong to severe thunderstorms around parts of the Midwest later on today. As you can see on our satellite imagery, thunderstorms have already blown up over much of western Iowa, parts of eastern Nebraska, and South Dakota. Some severe weather has been found out that way already today, and a few more storms are also beginning to show up now down in Missouri, and some of those could cut into eastern Iowa and northwestern Illinois later on today. Let's take a look at the energy available for thunderstorms here because this is pretty significant today. This is what's known as CAPE, convective available potential energy, and essentially it's tied to heat and humidity and the atmospheric conditions that might eventually produce some rotating thunderstorms or supercells later on this afternoon. And the CAPEs will be pretty significant late today across parts of central Illinois up into eastern Iowa, and then they really get going big time from about central Iowa into much of eastern Nebraska during the late afternoon and evening hours. So that indicates there's plenty of energy out there for strong storms to form later on today. Here's the radar, and it currently is showing some pretty strong thunderstorms up there in northwestern Iowa. These have had a history of producing hail, and you'll notice that they're not really in a line. Those are individual supercells. Those should become more numerous later on today, and this is tied to a warm front that runs right back into northeastern Missouri. That's where some additional storms are now showing up, but those aren't nearly as strong as the ones found out in northwestern Iowa. And to be honest with you, much of the Midwest today has at least the threat of a strong thunderstorm, but primarily it's going to be from about the Quad Cities north and west. And where you see the red there, across northern Iowa up into southern Minnesota, eastern Nebraska, the Storm Prediction Center has a moderate risk of severe thunderstorms today, and the parameters are out there, especially in northwestern Iowa and southern Minnesota, for some rotating storms that could actually produce some strong tornadoes. That's a threat that'll have to be watched as the afternoon hours go on. I do expect there's going to be a tornado watch issued for parts of that area as we get towards the late afternoon hours and get into the maximum instability. And the SPC there does show about a 10% chance for a tornado anywhere in that yellow shaded area, which does cover a lot of real estate across northern Iowa, northeastern Nebraska, even off to the Quad Cities, about a 5% chance that one of those thunderstorms could produce a tornado later on. So again, I think the primary threat is northwest of my viewing area, but something needs to be watched here as we go through the day. The other thing these storms will be producing is a lot of wind. You can see the threat for wind exists across much of Iowa today and up into southern Minnesota. And if we're going to see some wind around my area, I think the best chances for that would be late tonight as a thunderstorm complex forms to the northwest and then kind of rides the upper level winds off to the south-southeast. In fact, here's the simulated radar here, and this is during the early evening hours. Look at those big clusters of thunderstorms that have formed up in northwestern Iowa and go into Minnesota. That's where there's going to be severe weather around during the early evening hours. But again, the upper level winds will push that to the east, maybe even southeast later on tonight. And there'll be outflow boundaries associated with that, which is basically some cool air that gushes out of the thunderstorms. That kind of forms a little mini cool front. And I think these things could actually work their way into areas along and north of Interstate 80 through Iowa and then up into northwestern Illinois late tonight. In fact, this model here does indicate the thunderstorms down to the Quad Cities, but it's going to be very late tonight, and they would obviously be weaker at that time, but they could still put out some pretty good winds, and that'll be another situation that needs to be monitored later on during the day. Meantime, here's what's happening to cause all this. The jet stream has carved out a big trough over the western United States. The ridge is poked up over the eastern U.S. The winds are coming in out of the southwest, and that's tapping into warm, humid air, and that's going to be a part of the forecast here all the way through Thursday now. And with all that heat and humidity around, the instability will be in the area for scattered thunderstorms really all the way through Thursday, so something to watch there. And this is actually the temperatures off the European model for the Quad Cities. It's showing highs up there in the range of around 88 to 90 degrees as we go through Thursday here. And rest assured there'll be plenty of humidity along with that, so we are in for a pretty good case of the muggies. So to sum it up here today, I do expect the possibility of scattered showers and thunderstorms to form in eastern Iowa, western Illinois towards the late afternoon or evening. Those will probably fizzle out if they even pop up pretty early, and then later on tonight some stronger storms would be a possibility well after midnight. I really think the main show is going to be up there in northwestern and north central Iowa into Minnesota, maybe Nebraska. That's the region really under the gun for the worst of it as far as the severe weather is concerned here in the next 24 hours. But overall, real summer-like pattern with that threat for some showers and thunderstorms. And so that's your briefing for now. You're on tswails.com. Thanks for visiting. And as is always the case, roll weather.